she is able to do so. I would like to call to order the Policy and Planning Committee meeting of the Kctcs board. It is 4/21, April 21st at 4:32 p.m. I'd like to begin with a roll call, and if the parliamentarian, Ms. Duncan, would do that for us, please.
Yes, and if all of the members of the committee will make sure your cameras are activated. Chair Damaris.
Here.
James Lee, Vice Chair.
Here.
Secretary Wendy Fletcher.
Present.
Regent Herdink.
Here.
Regent Schaus is not present. And we will note for the record, although it is on the attendance, that Regent Jackson is now the faculty regent. Is she here?
I am.
All right. We have a quorum with only one member not present.
Okay, great. Good. Then business can begin. First, welcome to Patsy. Thank you for agreeing to serve on this committee. Many of you know that Brianna is serving on the ROC, the Resource Optimization Committee, and I try to balance out the time commitments that people are agreeing to in terms of their commitment to serving on various committees of the Kctcs Board of Regents. And so Patsy has graciously agreed to step in for Brianna while she is on assignment elsewhere. So thank you and welcome, Patsy. We appreciate you doing that for us. Before I jump into the actual agenda, I'm actually going to begin with a motion to make a modification to the agenda. And that motion is to remove the item under new business. It is item B, internal audit contract next steps. There's other work that's going on and some folks who need to come up to speed on some things relative to that topic. So I would like to make the motion that we remove that topic from today's agenda and place it on the next Policy and Planning Committee meeting agenda, which will be on May 19th of 2022. Is there any question about that? May I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Regent Fletcher. And Pam, do we need to roll call that?
We can do it as a consensus. So if no one objects, we can make that change.
Any objections? Hearing none, we are going to remove under new business section 3, item B from this agenda. It will be placed on the May 19th agenda. Thank you. All right, first order of business is the approval of the February 17th meeting minutes. Are there any questions, changes, additions, or deletions from those minutes? Hearing none, those minutes are approved as written. All right, just to walk through our agenda just a little bit. First item up is the Resource Optimization Committee Ad Hoc Team Report and next meeting announcement. Regent Fletcher will be delivering that. Then we will move into the June Board of Regents meeting agenda. We've got a couple of items to discuss specifically that are activities that appear on that agenda. So we'll go through some of those and then review the entire agenda in its totality in its current draft form for any questions or changes. So I'd like to jump right in with Regent Fletcher giving us her update on the ROC.
So the committee met as scheduled, and I feel like that we had a very good first meeting. Hannah attended that as our staff support, and I feel like that meeting was pretty well received, well attended. Everyone was there. We had some robust discussion. I will say that moving forward, we are polling now to see if we can have the next meeting I believe, Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that next meeting is tentatively scheduled for May the 5th in the evening or in the afternoon, late afternoon. We were trying to shoot for the 6th, but I think one of the presidents was going to be unable to attend. So we are trying to firm that date up, but we will be having another meeting here in just a couple of weeks. We were able to outline or sketch out some goals for the committee. And after going through our committee charge, going through the statutes that kind of shore up the reasoning or the authorization for us to be a committee and to do what we're trying to do with the Resource Optimization Committee. After we got through all of that and some discussion about that, we did come up with a few goals. One of those is to present to the board some suggestions for online learning quality program, so that we can ensure that, since so many of our students are attending classes now online or in a hybrid platform, that we are really getting around quality with those online courses and making sure that there are some uniform standards across the system, not just within each individual college. So we'll be looking at some drafts there. We're also looking at the impact of online coursework on soft skills and the effective development of skills for those folks entering the workforce after leaving our courses. We're looking at some reports as well. I've actually requested quite a bit of data from Dr. Williams and the institutional research folks, and have received some of that now. We'll be talking about that at our next committee meeting as well. My hope for the committee is that moving forward, we will not only be looking at student success goals with the quality within the online courses and all courses, but that we'll also be looking at some human resource goals. That's going to be a big part of our topic for this next meeting. Things like aligning structures and aligning cabinets across the system, aligning positions across the system so that we have more uniform job descriptions, making sure that we're ensuring equity and diversity across our leadership positions as well as within our job descriptions in the system. And then developing some administrative hubs, perhaps, as we talked about in the last board meeting, for resource sharing across the system. Looking to improve benefits for our employees so that we can tailor benefits to employee needs. We've talked just very briefly, and we're going to explore this more in the next meeting, about maybe a cafeteria style benefit plan so that employees are able to choose more benefits that are really tailored to their own needs, instead of just offering this blanket package for everyone that may have things that some people don't even utilize. And then we really want to talk about longevity within the system and ensuring that those types of benefits and that kind of recognition and longevity is rewarded within the system. And then we've also asked for the presidents to come back with some information for the committee about space utilization. And as we heard from the folks that presented in our last board meeting, being able to reduce things like deferred maintenance and raising buildings that maybe aren't being utilized anymore, or very old, or needing a lot of maintenance. We're asking them to really look at ways to identify where there are opportunities to change how we're utilizing space, or eliminate space or sublease space, whatever. So we're very busy. This committee's got a lot of data to look at. But like I said, everyone's pretty engaged in the conversation. I would like to ask for some clarification from the board, and perhaps that can be in my committee report to the full board, that I feel like the timeline on these things some of this needs to be a lot more immediate. It feels like that some of this is kind of getting pushed. Like one of the responses that I got was, oh, we should be able to get that data to you by December, and then maybe make a decision on what to do. And to me, that feels like it's very far away. I'm looking for much more immediate changes to our resources and optimizing our resources much sooner than that. And so I just kind of I wanted to put that out there and just let you know, Chair Damaris and Vice Chair Stevens, I'm really going to be pushing this committee to, you know, really optimize and do it in a timely manner and not wait 6 months to think about it or talk about it. So, but otherwise, I mean, I feel like, again, it was a good first meeting. Hannah, do you want to weigh in, or do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered it very well. It's a full plate for that committee for sure. But I think the first meeting went extremely well. I think we have not finalized the next date, but I can talk offline with you about that, and we'll get that set ASAP so we can let everyone know when it'll be.
Okay, very good. I have really appreciated the feedback from Dr. Williams and from her staff about the data that I've requested. I will say there's some tweaking we can do with the way data is being reported to the committee. I feel like it was not crystal clear, particularly on things like trends and timelines that we probably need to be a little more, I need to be a little more definite in my ask so that they understand exactly what I'm looking for there. We got a very nice, very long-term historic picture that I think was good to know, but going forward, we'll probably be a little more precise with our asks from the cabinet members about the data that we want. But otherwise, I was very happy with it. And like I said, everybody's been very responsive. I really appreciated having the four presidents there, sorry, giving their input. And I learned so much in that first meeting, just from some of the comments that were made. So it's very worthwhile. I think we're going to make great progress, but we're going to do it quickly. So that's probably all that I have. Chair Damaris, thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent report and an excellent start. And if anybody, you know, kind of steps back for a minute and digests all the different things the committee's looking at, it is a full plate of opportunities. So really an excellent start to the work there. So I am so thankful that we have this cross-functional team working with you. It's representative of college presidents and board members and some staff members. I know Dr. Williams is working on the committee, so it's a really good effort and an excellent start. So thank you so much, Regent Fletcher, for your update. I really appreciate it. The next item that we're going to look at is actually the June Board of Regents meeting agenda. And in your onboard, there is a couple of draft agendas. There's one for the Thursday, which is June 9th, and then it continues into the Friday. So just a reminder to everyone, on Thursday, we will be in Owensboro. Owensboro has graciously agreed to host us, and we will begin at 12 p.m. Central Time. So for those of us like me who are on Eastern Time, that is 12 p.m. Central Time. So everyone make note of that. The day will begin with a college tour and presentation from the Owensboro leadership team. We actually, having learned some lessons from being out in Hazard, wanted to put this at the very beginning of the agenda so that we don't run into time constraints and have to shorten this particular item. So we will do the presentation and tour right as soon as the roll call is complete. And then the agenda items, much like our last time in Hazard, are update items. So there's no actions to be taken on Thursday. We will hear first from Learner Success and Workforce Development Report. Very much looking forward to that. I know that there's been a ton of work done by Miss Jessie Shook. She was on our agenda the last two meetings and never got to present. So I asked Hannah to move this up to the first item so that we are able to devote some quality time to hearing the Workforce Development Report as well as the other learner success items. Following that, we will ask Regent Fletcher and her team to present a more detailed report for Resource Optimization Committee. And then following that, we will have the Administrative Services report, which I believe we had in our packets at the last meeting, but didn't actually have a verbal presentation. So that will happen on that Thursday. And then we will adjourn for the afternoon and come back again Friday morning. So taking a look at the Friday morning agenda, pretty standard to what we've been doing here for several meetings now. Call to order, roll call, approval of the meeting minutes, our consent agenda. This time I have moved up, and this is for you, Dr. Zarapata. I've moved your president's report up because, as you know, it often gets put at the end and then we don't get to it. And it's extremely important to have the president's report. So, Paul, did you want to comment on that a little bit, or
Yes,
you okay with that?
And so what I'd like to do is during the time I've got for my president's report, part of it I'd like to give to Kathy Dykstra from the Family Scholar House. We've started up a system-wide project with them to provide wraparound services to our students in need. I think it's a real compelling story, and I want to give her a little bit of time in front of the board so that you all understand what's going on.
Great, great. And then the rest would be your report after that?
That's correct. Yep.
Great, great. Well, I think that's wonderful, and I'm so glad to hear that. I know that we have a scholar house here in Covington that was started a couple of years ago, and Gateway has been much involved in that success. So that's wonderful to hear more of those types of projects being launched throughout the state.
Yeah, I believe as of this morning, we only have one college that has not signed the MOA with them, but we'll have everybody on board by the time the board meeting's going and a bunch of campaigns started. So it's really exciting.
Wonderful, wonderful, good. So then after your report, and we'll go into the board agenda items, and much like we've done in the past, if Hannah, you can scroll just a little bit, includes a whole bunch of action items. And so first recognizing our two regents who will be graduating. So Regent Gallagher and Regent Schaus will be presented for action by the board as candidates for credentials. And then going into ratification of personnel actions, which is a pretty standard item that we do in our board agendas. You can see that there are several other items that are listed there, and a couple of those items kind of parallel to discussion items for today's meeting. And so we're going to ask for a little bit of discussion a little later on the college mission statements. So I'll hold on that for now. I would like to talk about the Board of Regents evaluation discussion, however, and that is actually item C1 of today's agenda. And I'm going to ask Hannah to please describe the process for those folks who are not familiar with it, because you're going to do a better job than me, I'm sure. And then we'll talk about our new leader of that process for this coming evaluation of the board.
Sure. So the board evaluation process was started 3 years ago as a requirement by our accrediting agency, SAC-COC, that the governing board evaluate its work annually. And when I say its work, I mean the work as a whole, not that of individual regents, but really look at, is the board focusing on what it should focus on? Are there pain points? Are there room for improvement, even just around logistics and how we're meeting? So what we have done in the past is send out an anonymous survey via Onboard for regents to complete. Those responses go back to one of the regents who volunteers for it, and collects the information, analyzes it, and then presents a report at our June meeting. If there are things to take away from that survey, the regent can make recommendations or suggestions that the board can then act on. And I think every year pretty much we've had some great suggestions come out of this, and things that we change and improve on. So it's been a really great process.
Excellent, thank you. What a great description. And so this year, we have asked Regent Jackson, although she's relatively new to the board, she's certainly not new to these types of studies and internal looks at how folks are working together, how well they're working together, and how we can, capitalize on all the good things and make other things better. So, Regent Jackson, did you want to spend a couple of minutes here just talking about, your experience and how we, I feel 100% confident you're going to do a great job with this. So.
I just want to say thank you for baptism by fire. If that's what this is, I'm happy to try. I may have to reach out for input from folks because obviously this is brand new, but I'm not scared of a lot of things. I'll do my best to do a good job for you. Hopefully my experience in working with SACs, obviously this is going to be part of that process. I'm relatively comfortable there. So hopefully I can add value in that way. And evaluation is something I've revamped at this college several times at the request of various presidents. I just finished a report today to my provost actually on an overhaul of evaluation here at the college with a great team of people. So I will do my very best and definitely be open, remain open to input. If I get way out in the weeds or I go rogue in any way, I trust that this crew will give me some direction. So I'm happy to serve, happy to help any way I can.
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome.
For your reference, in the onboard, you will find a section in our resources that shows you the last 3 years surveys and results. And so I think that'll be really helpful to you, Patsy, as you do a little homework on what's been done before. And then Hannah could definitely walk you through kind of the logistical process in terms of when we send out the surveys and when we need the data back and all of that. And then certainly there are plenty of people here on this board. Joe's been through it. I've been through it. James Lee's been through it. If you want to reach out to anybody on this committee who's already been through it and you just want to chat about a question you have, feel free to do that. So. Thank you. Thank you. The next, let's go back to the agenda here. I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. The next couple of items that are on the agenda, and I will come back to the system-wide college mission statement in a few minutes, but the next 3 items after the Board of Regents evaluation discussion are the financial matters that are routinely addressed by the Board of Regents at the June meeting. So each year we bring up the salary schedule so that we can review that schedule, and there's action called to approve the schedule. This year we should be looking at a possibly a revision to that schedule, and there is work being done relative to some previous presentations that we received as a board, looking at how that schedule should look. So that information will be described to you at the board meeting before asking for action. It's sort of a domino effect. The salary schedule feeds into the compensation, which then feeds into the annual budget. And so that is why those are set in that order. As you know, we've been talking for over a year now, I believe, about compensation. Had some presentations at the March meeting to discuss what various options are out there. There is still much work being done on this particular item. We have some input from some new folks who are getting a bit more involved from the finance team. And I know that James Lee had met with Dr. Zarapata and folks from the System Office Finance team earlier today to talk about the compensation item. I have a meeting scheduled next week to talk a little bit more about it. And I'd like President Zarapata to kind of weigh in on kind of where he sees things are right now with that.
Yeah, we've had some really good interactions with other board members. For those of you that don't know, Buddy Combs is running point right now on this. And so if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to Buddy about this. He has, we've worked out some additional scenarios. I think if you remember from the board meeting, we had 5. We had some marching orders to go back out and take a look at different things, such as instead of years in position, to look at years in service. We've done that. We shared some things with Regent Stevens today. As Chair Damaris said, we're going to share some with her. We are at the next, I think it's May 18th, maybe, is our next Policy and Planning Committee meeting.
19th,
Buddy and I are planning on giving a full presentation there. That will give the board a lot of time to get feedback on this. We'll get that presentation out to you. In addition, Buddy has gotten very good at scatter plots over the past 2 weeks. So a ton of scatter plots. The helpful thing there is it shows how it visually shows how these things move from where they're at now to where they go when their salary increases to where they go once the compression algorithm moves in there. In addition to that, we're also going to show another option, which is just a flat percentage increase to the base. And we'll talk about, and so we want to provide you with as many options as we can. James Lee kept us busy today, so we've got some more things to go back and work through. And we'll be getting back, to everybody quickly. But I think it's been very productive, and I really appreciate the Regents giving their feedback. I know Joe has had some, and Brianna, Kimberly, et cetera. It's been a good interactive session.
And are we, can I ask a question? Are we seeing scatter on the scatter plots now instead of that grouping?
It's not as much as I would like. And so what's happening with the way that the compression is being, and we'll address this when we do the presentation, but those groupings are moving at the same pace because many of them have the same years of service. And so what you're seeing is now they're moving farther away from the minimum, which is a good thing. They're just not moving. You're still in a compression scenario, which is so, and we'll talk more about this. I really do think that a real deep dive looking at salary equities and how to really get out of this mess is due. I think this is going to help, but I do think we need someone to take a deeper dive on this to see where, because it's not just years of service that's causing this. There's all sorts of variables in this that are difficult to track. And as Buddy and I were going over all of the scatter plots today, those groupings are just moving. They're not separating, if that makes sense.
And that was my comment, Dr. Zarapata, about when you continue to move the target, moving the minimum, it doesn't fix compression. You have to move the people, not the targets. And so when you keep moving the target, you'll group the people, but you'll keep them compressed just like they are now, as long as you keep moving that minimum or moving that mean. We've got to eventually either move that minimum or change this policy that's kind of unwritten, unspoken, but we know is applied across the system where everybody's being hired in pretty much at a minimum. And so then everybody stays well below that. I'm with you, and I appreciate the deeper dive, and I think our faculty and staff folks will appreciate the deeper dive to get some separation in there. But yeah, I feel like we're just compressing at a different level.
Well, and we had a discussion at Cabinet this week about the need for a compensation policy. And Pam, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that. Apparently that's pretty common.
Right, it is very common, and we have not had an overarching compensation policy. Part of a compensation policy actually has a compression component in it. So it has a strategy for ensuring that as you hire new people in, the reasons for compression do not become compounded. And there are a variety of reasons for compression, as Dr. Zarapata was saying. So the overarching compensation policy would address how you hire and set minimum market and maximum, how you set that salary, how you set overloads, how you do all of the different components of wages and benefits, etc. And that will help to prevent some of this kind of, for want of a better word, willy-nilliness in, who moves where and what. So I think that is our first order of business.
Patsy, you had your hand up, and then James Lee.
I just have a couple questions. Again, this is my first meeting, so forgive me if this is a stupid question, but is this meeting private or is this being live streamed? In any way?
It's live streamed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into specific things, but at this point it will come out in other meetings. But I do appreciate as well the deeper dive, as Wendy already said, Regent Fletcher, because this is a serious vote. It has, obviously, we all know, long-standing consequences or benefits for people. And there seemingly in our last meeting were more questions than answers. We wanted additional information and people still were thinking about it. So with some of the questions that are coming out, I hope that we do have ample time to discuss this prior to a vote, even if that means, I don't know if we could have another session prior to, because I really want to have a full understanding. I know all of us do, and to really look at this front to back, top to bottom, side to side, to ensure that we are doing absolutely what is best. So again, I don't know how that's going to play into the agenda or if there would need to be a different session. But as you're saying, there are even new ways of looking at this, Dr. Zarapata.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful that we get this out early to you on May 19th. Okay. That gives you 3 weeks in a day, basically, to digest this presentation as we get it out to you and slice and dice it. We'll have the scatter plots. We'll have more information than you'll probably want. But you're right. This is a big decision. It's a lot of money. And, it's imperative to me that we spend it in the right way, to impact the most amount of people and make a difference. I mean, we've got, there's several different ways we can go. And James Lee, would you like to comment?
Well, yes, and it is really complicated. I wish it was an easy way to do this and I use this just as an example, that if for every year of service, everybody got an extra $100. So for, basically for 5-year service on your base pay, you got $500 or so. And 20 years, you got $2,000 or 25 for $2,500. Basically it really jumps it up and it's a reoccurring expense. So basically this year it might be $4 million to do the thing and next year you find out it's going to cost you, because people move in seniority, so it costs you $4.5 million. And so, as I said, I thought it was, there needs to be a simple way, but I realize it is not. And it takes a lot of, and as Paul says, I came away from the meeting to say, well, we need somebody maybe not smarter, but has more knowledge than we have. But if we have someone, then we need to set an outside consultant. We set parameters on them, because there's no need to employ somebody to do a study and come back and say, okay, this is what you need. We need to add $15 million or $20 million for it. Well, you know, we could have figured that out. Is what I'm saying is, so it is, you know, I'm in some of the Joe and Patsy or compression. I'm working on the theory of seniority is what I'm saying, that for every that is, and basically is that you know, from the information we had, we were looking at various figures, and I'll throw this out, is that they range from about $20 million additionally. And I asked Paul the question is, and he's going to have to, first of all, when you talk to the finance people now, if they don't have the answer, they will tell you, we'll find it, we'll work it out, we'll give you the information back. And that was not always the case, is what I'm saying is. But basically, you know, there's a lot of moving parts in this, and it's not easy, but we're looking at, and this is what I suggested to Paul from the last presentation, we're looking at somewhere around $20 million increase in salaries. Now, how do we get that? How do we do that? This and that is because basically is that, and I've asked Paul also, Paul, have you got any more money? Can you put a little bit more in there? Because when I talked with Paul and Hannah and the finance people, I asked them is because we had not had salaries, we had not had things in the past, give us as much as you can for next year. Don't, you know, we had heard some stuff before is that, well, maybe that we can give a 5% raise or 4% raise. We'll do that next year. Also, meaning 23 or so. But I've asked Paul and asked the finance people to get that, and they're working on that. But I think we're heading the right direction. But I'm a firm believer. I'm hoping that it would work out, but I'm not optimistic we're going to be able to solve all these problems by the June 15th meeting, Madam Chairman. So that's what I'll leave it at.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this in there. Regardless of what we do, we're not going to be able to fix it in one fell swoop. It's, you know, it's a problem that's compounded itself over years and years and years, and I think it really deserves, you know, pay equity analysis. And Pam, I think you had your hand up first, so I'll go back to you.
Right. I just wanted to jump in there and echo what James Lee is saying. And that's where that policy comes into place, so that this is a tripod problem, so to speak. It is an HR problem, it is a finance problem, and it is a legal problem. And so I think we need to approach it that way. But in the interim, I do think that we need to do this financial component of it to ensure that our people are taken care of.
Right, thank you. And then not to dive down too deep into this particular topic at this time, one of the reasons why I asked Dr. Zarapata and Buddy Coombs to prepare the presentation for the May 19th meeting is because it is a vast topic and there are a lot of questions. And I wanted this group to have the opportunity to be the, I call it the guinea pigs or the dry run, so that we can see the presentation that Dr. Zarapata and Buddy Coombs and the team have come up with, and provide some feedback so that when we come to the table in June, we're way more informed. What we don't want to do is wait until June and get a 25-page presentation that does nothing but confuse us more. So I know that Paul has committed to that, and I absolutely agree with you, Pam, that it's not a quick fix. It's not a one and done. We should definitely be approaching it from all three angles: the financial, which is where most of the resources are being spent the legal in terms of policy and compliance. And then as Paul, just mentioned, and I think even Regent Fletcher mentioned this, when you look at the HR side, you're really looking at the equity, issues. And that is not an across the board thing. You cannot look at equity and say, oh, we're going to wave one magic wand and it's going to fix everybody. It literally is an individual by individual study. And that will, obviously take some time, but absolutely needs to be done. So, and we had said this early on, that addressing compensation and compression was likely going to be a multi-phase project. And so I think we're doing good work. I feel very confident. I echo what James Lee is saying, that we have some super talented people that are working on this. I know Paul is dedicating a lot of his time to this, and we should have a really good start.
Yeah, and I will say that, I'm very hopeful that when I hire the next vice president of talent inclusion, workplace culture, that they're going to have some experience with this. I don't know they're going to be able to do it all themselves. I think we're going to probably need some outside help, but it's the right thing to do. And you're right. I mean, we need somebody to take a look to see if we don't even know where we have issues right now in some cases. If you're looking at full pay equity analysis, it's, you're looking at everything. You're looking at age, seniority, race, ethnicity, gender, all those things to make sure, and the last thing I want to do is to put forward an algorithm that might exacerbate that. And I know that, that's been a concern too from some other board members. So anyway, I'll shut up for now, but I look forward to presenting this information with Buddy. Regent Fletcher?
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So more to come. Lots of crunching of numbers, lots of work done in the legal office looking at compensation policy, and then obviously more work on the HR side. But you all will receive the presentation well ahead of time. We'll discuss it in this meeting on the 19th. We'll gather your feedback. We'll gather others' feedback and try to bring you something that is as crisp, concise, and easy to understand as possible for the June meeting. Those are the marching orders to Dr. Zarapata and his team.
Understood.
Understood. All right, and then following that will of course be the annual budget, which we are statutorily required to review and take action upon at the June timeframe. Our fiscal ends on June 30th, begins on July 1, and so that is why we do that in early June.
Madam Chairman, I asked Paul today and Buddy to give us a one-page, if it's possible, cheat sheet, ever what you call it, is about the reference to these funds. What are the guidelines? For example, what is the unrestricted funds? And is there a procedure or policy that Kctcs has that you have in your budget, you have certain amount of funds that are unrestricted and are guaranteed? Another one would be like salaries. And I asked Buddy and he answered the questions. Maybe everyone knows this but you cannot move salaries you can move them within the salary schedule at a college, but you can't move it to maintenance without Kctcs's approval. So I just thought it might be good. And when the budget came out, if we had something, Paul and you and I talked about this, a one sheet thing is that here are the guidelines we operate the budget underneath, and here are the responsibilities of the system office. Here's the responsibility. Here's what the colleges can do. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Great. Yeah, what a wonderful idea. I think that would be excellent information for the board to have. Just from an understanding standpoint, the more information we have to understand the parameters in which decisions are made, the easier it is and the more informed we are to make good decisions, I believe. The next item that is actually on this agenda, which is the President's Annual Performance Review, and it's listed as item C2 on today's agenda, Annual Evaluation of the Kctcs President. I'm going to take you guys back in time a little bit. Last September, we had asked Dr. Zarapata to present his goals, which he did, and the board discussed those and approved those. We also made some changes to the annual evaluation process and procedure. And in our minds, we thought all that stuff made sense, that we would approve the goals in September and then we would annually evaluate the president in June. Taking a step back though, that doesn't give Dr. Zarapata a full year to work on his goals. It actually kind of cuts him short a little bit by almost a quarter or 3 months. And I think in fairness to Dr. Zarapata, I would like to propose that this committee take action and move the annual evaluation of the Kctcs president for at least this year, 2022, to the September board meeting. So I'm going to make a motion and then I'll ask for any discussion, input, or questions, and then ask for a second. And so my motion is that the Board of Regents would postpone the Kctcs president's annual performance review for this year, originally scheduled for June of 2022, to September of 2022.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
By doing so, would we then resume annual evaluations in June of next year?
We could absolutely do that, yes. This would be a sort of one-time move that would be in effect for this particular annual evaluation, but we could go back to the procedure and go back to the June schedule. Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's true. She's nodding.
You're correct.
She's nodding, yeah.
So does that mean we should pull the goals back to June? If that makes any sense.
I'm just I guess I'm a little confused. I understand the purpose for doing it, but it's kind of like the compression thing. If we're moving the target, then we're just putting off what we're going to face this year till next year. So next year would only be 9 months instead of 12. Yes, Pam, I see your hand.
So, Regent Fletcher, I think it's more a matter of timing. So if you think of it as May to May, Chair Damaris was concerned about getting feedback in May and getting it all collated in time so that there wouldn't be May to May even. Dr. Zarapata's contract began May 16th. So if the policy requires feedback to come back in May to be collated for the June meeting, it's more about timing than it is about evaluation, period. So I don't think we're moving the evaluation period. We're just giving, I think, Chair Damaris's intent, and I may be misstating this, Chair Damaris, but her intent was to give more time to get the feedback in and get it collated.
Exactly. That is the exact intent, because when you look at the process we execute for the annual evaluation of the president, it actually starts at least 4, if not 6 weeks ahead of time in survey instruments and get data gathering and all of that. And so if we were to start that in literally 2 weeks from now, in order to have it delivered at the June meeting, we would be cutting, ourselves short of a more complete evaluation period is the way I'd like to say it. So my proposal would be,
year.
Yes, that would be the first.
Gotcha. Okay.
First year. So I looked at that in context of the goals being approved in September and kind of looking at all the timing of that, it just didn't balance really well. So what I'm thinking is even though there would be a September evaluation report, of course, the data gathering is going to start as early as end of July, mid-July, and therefore be ready for a September report. So that gives a more full complement of time for the process.
So
Does
then
that-
going forward, the next evaluation period would be what? Not the report, but the evaluation period.
The period, we would still continue the period.
May to
We
May.
close the period, because at first we were starting with the contract, but now we're trying to align it to the fiscal, right? So the period would go back to the fiscal, which means by the end of June.
So basically what you end up is going back to the June to June evaluation, because you have a continuation, whereas before there was no continuation. It was the first evaluation. So there's just a little bit of wiggle room there because of that lack of continuity in the contracts and the approval of the goals. But by the time we're into the second evaluation, it will flow as it should.
Exactly.
Thank you
Does
for
that
the
answer your
explanation and
question?
clarification.
Oh,
So
good.
I would
Thank
second
you.
your motion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
I
it.
have Madam Chairman, I have a question is, talking about the future, is that, and I'm for this. I think it's a good idea. I don't want to get us sidetracked on other things, but at the end of the evaluation, then I really don't feel like we need to wait another 3 months to see what Paul's goals are, or the president's, in the evaluation. So I don't know how we do that. Basically, if we complete this one in September, we really need to have going forward his goals at the September that he presents to us for September through June. And then down the road, if we're going to end it in June, if that makes sense, then he needs to present us also what his goals are, so we can get a full year with these goals. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and it actually was the intent of the original modification to the procedure to have it be a June to June. What ended up happening this year is it ended up being a September to June. So all I'm saying is, logistically, this is April. If we started all the mechanics of the evaluation in May, it shortchanges the president, basically. It doesn't give us the time we need to execute the full process. So you're right. We would have the evaluation presented in September, gather the data July, as early as mid-July, but it would be through June 30th would be the time frame. And then, Hannah, I'll throw this out to you procedurally. Do we need to wait until September for Paul to give us his goals, or could he give us his goals for next year in June, even though we're doing the evaluation in September?
Absolutely, and we actually had allowed for in that the procedure that he would be presenting his goals once our new strategic plan is final, and goes into effect, which should be July 1st. So hopefully as soon as that is published and out there, Dr. Zarapata would write his new goals based on the strategic plan, and that could be shared with the board either by a special meeting or, of course, by email. We could not have any back and forth conversation about them until a public meeting, but we could deliver those to you much sooner than September.
Right. And I think that might address your question, Regent Stevens, is that we don't have to wait until the September timeframe for Dr. Zarapata to start his goals. He would have all the information he needs based upon the approval of the strategic plan to start working them as early as you want to, with all the other stuff you have to do, Dr. Zarabata.
Yes,
But
and
we can
yeah, I would also say is I would hope that if there's some issues, if the evaluation or some things need to be improved, Paul, you're going to address those also. I mean, you can, as I said, his goals can be added and subtracted from is what I'm saying. So I want him to feel comfortable that that there's no surprises.
Right. I agree.
I appreciate that.
All right. So I think Regent Jackson has a question.
It wasn't a question, it was just a comment, Chair Damaris, and it was basically what Jimmy Lee shared, which was if the goals are established early and then in September there needs to be a modification of that, he would have the ability to modify the goals based on feedback at that evaluation rather than being locked into those. Is that correct?
Exactly. And that's what allows that process. And that was sort of the original intent of the June to June time frame. So I think what we're doing is just sort of backing into it, allowing ourselves the time to do a proper evaluation, and also obviously for the president, for Dr. Zarapata, to have a full time period in which he is evaluated. So I think that it all sort of balances out with this one move, and then it goes into a more regular process. Did you have a question, Paul?
I did. So I think the way we may be able to tackle this is, I know I was asked to give a presentation that kind of wrapped up the strategic plan along with the action plan. Maybe at the end of that, I present the goals that I'm proposing, and then I could get feedback that way. Does that make sense?
That's great. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, and that's
Okay.
at the June board meeting.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I can just make that a part of the presentation then.
Yeah, make that part of your presentation at the June meeting. And then we would begin the evaluation process right after that, and deliver the annual evaluation of the president in the September meeting. But also there would be ample time for some feedback on the goals as well.
Great. Thank you.
Everybody good? We all get it? Believe me, my brain was going, how do I get this all reconciled? So.
No, I think he makes a good point with that, Chair Damaris, and that is really to bring full circle, when you're closing out and then you're developing, it's sort of just like stepping off to the next level, and it does tie the pieces together and closes the loop. So I think that's perfect timing for that.
Yeah, I like it. See, great minds, when we all come together, we come up with the best product, right?
That's right.
All right, so the original motion then was to postpone the formal evaluation report of the Kctcs president to the September board meeting. It was seconded by Regent Fletcher. And Pam, do we need to do a roll call on that?
Yes, because this does alter a policy and procedure. So I will take roll call. Chair Damaris.
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens.
Yes.
Secretary Fletcher.
Yes.
Regent Herding.
Yes.
And I believe Regent Schaus is here now.
Yes.
And Regent Jackson.
Yes.
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Thank you. Wonderful. We have, going back to the June board meeting agenda, after the action items conclude, I believe that the remaining items are the annual Board of Regents officer elections. And then we have sort of a standing time for executive session, and then our next meeting, which would be in September. So those are pretty standard items. Probably not a lot of discussion necessarily needed. So what I would like to do at this point in time is kind of go back to item C3, which was system-wide college mission statements approval. And Dr. Zarapata, are you going to be presenting this or discussing this topic today, or is Dr. Williams going to guest in. I'm not sure.
I don't think she's guesting in. Basically, this will be the first time we've ever done what I guess could be framed as a mass approval of all 16 college mission statements. Hannah, you might have a little bit more information than I do on this.
Sure. So just as Dr. Zarapata said, this will be the first time under a new policy that the board approved that we'll be bringing the college mission statements to you for approval in one fell swoop. We just wanted to put out there how this will proceed. Chancellor Williams will present it at the board meeting, and she will put all 16 together. Of course, she'll have those in advance to look at. And it will be one motion for approval. Should any mission statement need revision, editing, have any questions about it, we will separate that one and pull it out and vote on it separately. But hopefully they could be approved in one singular motion.
Great, thank you. I actually really applaud this effort. It's consistent with some things we have changed this past year. You might recall, as a board, we modified the approval of program process so that if one college has a program approved, then it applies to everybody. So it doesn't, all the other colleges don't have to keep coming back for approval of the same program. So I think this is wonderful, and I'm really very encouraged and happy to hear that Chancellor Williams has decided to do things this way. I guess one of the questions I would have, just a brief question, is in the past, the college presidents would present kind of the process they went to in order to get their missions updated. Would we still at least have maybe a one-page summary of that for each of the mission statements, so that we know, and we believe all the presidents do what they're supposed to do, but we know that they have sought input from all of their appropriate constituents in order to update their mission statement?
Yes, I can make sure that Dr. Williams includes that with each mission statement. Hopefully it is no more than a page, because that's already 16 pages. But yes, I think that's very vital to the approval, is seeing the process they went through to refine those or keep them as is.
Great. I'm envisioning in my brain the mission statement at the top, and maybe a template that says, you know, for each college, how they went through that process, because they all pretty much follow the same process. They get input from their local boards, and they get input from their faculty and staff. And so as I've heard them over the years, it's a pretty similar process across the board. So if we had like a template where they would just express all of that with their mission statement, I think we would accomplish the due diligence that I'm looking for.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions on this item? Great. It is 5:35 p.m. on a wonderfully cloudy day, which it's always cloudy outside my window here in Northern Kentucky, it seems. The sun comes out in May, stays out till October, goes away in November, and doesn't come back again. I do not have any additional items other than to state the next meeting of this committee will be May 19th at the same time, 4:30 p.m. Are there any other questions, comments from the group?
Chair Damaris, would it be
Yes.
okay for me to attend that committee meeting from the beach in Hawaii? Because that's where I will be.
Absolutely. Now you need to figure out the time change on that, Regent Fletcher.
I want to say it's 5 hours, so
I
I'll
think
be
it's-
meeting with you early in the morning, maybe before I go
Yeah.
out to the beach.
I
Yeah.
want to be sure we see pictures.
Yeah, we'll want to see the beautiful blue sky. Yeah, I was just there in October, and it was a 6-hour difference. So
Which island?
Maui.
I'll be on Oahu.
All right, so there may be a difference there. Yeah, but absolutely, if you are willing to get up that early in the morning, we are so happy to have you there.
Yeah, I'll be there. Maybe I'll do it for the balcony, just so you guys
Yeah.
can feel like you're in Hawaii that day.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Teams. You can participate from anywhere. Your willingness to do it on a different time schedule is admirable. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks.
All right. Then I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Regent Jackson, did you have a comment?
I'm sorry, I can't see the people, so.
It's okay. I was just wondering, does this normally finish at 5:30? Because again, I'm new to this team, so I had kind of scheduled some board meetings and things out on my calendar for the rest of the year prior to knowing I was going to be on this. And I think I have one at 6 on that day. Will we finish about this time so that I can then do that?
Yeah, I think our very first one, we didn't finish till 6, but that's because we were new and figuring out our process. But yeah, we finish at about 5:30.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Good question. All right, I think Joe made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do I need a second?
Second.
Patsy gave us a second. All right, all in favor, raise your team's hand
Raise your hand.
or your physical hand, however you want to do it. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Alexandra, glad you could join us. Appreciate it. And it is 5:38 p.m. and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.